TAG TV and TAG Radio be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. TAG TV, TAG Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. TAG TV and TAG Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Some pundits are still trying to figure out the recent Supreme Court decision, but one thing remains perfectly clear. Confusing medical bills are not a recent phenomenon, but Americans are now responsible for more of them due to rising costs, decreased employer coverage, elevated unemployment rates, and the introduction of high-deductible health plans. Some say patients will pay hundreds of billions of dollars out of their own pockets for health care, yet remain continuously frustrated by confusing bills and the lack of financing options. Greetings, everyone. It's Friday, July 6, 2012, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. Healthcare. How do you eliminate confusion and clear up the mess? The answer is today's Tech Talk focus, Patient Co., a straightforward, simple, and convenient way to manage and pay healthcare expenses in an easy-to-read format and offering multiple convenient payment options. Up to the Tech Talk on changing the way payment transactions occur between patient and their doctors, Byrd Blitch, Chief Executive Officer of Patient Co. Since its launch in 2010, thousands of patients have used its free patient wallet to manage and better understand their healthcare expenses. Previously, Byrd co-founded BroadSource, where as CEO during his tenure was instrumental in transforming the venture-funded company to one of the leading telco expense management companies. Twice listed by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest-growing private companies in the United States. Where did the idea for Patient Co. originate? What specific technology differentiates it? And just what does the future look like for the patient, healthcare, and the confusion of expenses? As Tino turns the Tech Talk FinTech with Patient Co. CEO Byrd Blitch.
Byrd, thanks for joining me on Tech Talk.
Great to be here. Thanks, Tino, for having me on.
Well, we've known each other for a while, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about your company myself. So talk about Patient Co., how it works, what you're doing with it, and how did it originate?
Well, let's see. If we go back to the early days, Joshua Silver and I were researching ways to move money around not only faster through the Fed's ACH network, but also a lot of the data that's associated with it. That's kind of I refer to that as the remittance information.
Right.
And it was really interesting. We were trying to determine kind of the root cause on why it's so slow. Feels like you can go out and buy a dinner on a Friday night and it doesn't, get debited from your account until a Monday or Tuesday. And during this same period, our first daughter arrived, and also with her, I had a lot of confusing, hard to understand healthcare bills. So that was a great example. You take those bills and you trace them back to the root cause, and they certainly go to payments, and payments go to bills. And these bills were very confusing in healthcare. Who hasn't received a healthcare bill that they don't understand?
Right.
I mean, these bills included EOBs from our insurance company. They included bills for a hearing test, bills from our hospital, doctors, anesthesiologists. There was a radiologist bill in there, just to name a few. And so checking into that further, some of these doctors even used medical billing companies, so I couldn't even talk to their office about questions on my bills. These CPT codes and this jargon is not something that patients understand. So to say the least, the process was very frustrating, and kind of turning that around with my background, it was with a company called BroadSource, and our technology platform was built to help businesses understand and pay their telecom bills. So ironically, up until this point in time, I felt like there was nothing more confusing than a telecom bill. But with all these healthcare bills in my hand from all these different doctors with all these foreign codes embedded on them, I turned to Josh and told him there's even a bigger problem to solve now, and he agreed.
And so now you deal with the patient payment side, not the insurance side, right? Why is that? Usually I guess people try to work with insurance, but I think there's probably some obvious reasons why not.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are technology platforms out there that help doctors adjudicate these claims faster. For example, you go to the doctor or the hospital, let's just say it's $1,000 and insurance is going to pay $600. Well, there's $400 left over that you have to pay.
Right.
And that patient payments portion is growing so much. I'm sure we've all seen it, right? You've got high deductible health care plans out there. You've got just more and more people paying more, especially with the news of the last week with the Supreme Court's decision. So this is where people need help, and it's the growing segment. There's a huge disconnect there. Insurance and insurance, and there's a whole segment already dealing with that, to your point. But we are people and patient-focused, and we want to help patients figure out what they owe and then give them all the different options to owe it or to pay it and to manage it and understand it and have more visibility and control around it.
And do you have your own proprietary technology? And I guess talk about what makes what Patient Code different than other. Well, I'm assuming you have some competition out there. Sure.
Well, the pure stack is on the technology side. It's a LAMP stack, which is Linux, Apache web server, MySQL database, and PHP. And it's interesting. We actually use a Colony, which is a PHP framework written by some Georgia Tech College of Computing students. So that's a little unique, but the outside of it and what it does is, first of all, it's a platform which, think of those ugly descriptions on your bill codes that I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. It takes those CPT codes, and we have a library that's basically crowdsourced among all participating doctors and hospitals. So they have ways to translate those codes into language that you and I understand. And so that's very nice. The second thing it does, it's a vertically integrated system. So you as a patient can have a uniform experience across a paper bill, an online system, even a phone system, and the same for the doctors. They have one place that they can go to manage all these patient payments, whether it be a lockbox payment, whether it be a credit card payment, online bill pay, a phone system, as I mentioned, even things like text payments. And so it's really nice because you can tie all that in to the patient, and you as a patient have one place to go for everything. So when you go to that hospital and you get 5 or 6 bills, just like I did earlier, and you don't know where to turn, you can go to Patient Co. and manage it all. Even with doctors who don't know who we are, you can send them payments and manage all your healthcare expenses from one location.
So I'll put my customer hat on. Let's say I just went to the hospital for something, came back, got 6 bills from all the different areas that worked on me, if you will. And so how do you, how would from a layman's standpoint, how would I actually find Patient Co. and use the service?
Well, we do at some point, have to reach out to a hospital to get that patient health information.
Yeah.
And the easiest and most common way it's done is through a paper statement. So we take that, all the billing information, and repurpose it and retranslate it and send it to a patient in a way that you can understand. And with that, there are lots of calls to actions to take you to Patient Co. to see more. And most people, if they have more control and more visibility, they'll go to somewhere, for example, online to understand more. And ultimately, there's a real benefit there, whereas back to your example, Tino, if you go to the hospital and let's say you came out with 5 bills, you're also going to get 5 EOBs, right, explanation of benefits from your insurance company. And let's say those first 5 bills don't make a whole lot of sense to you, so you're going to wait around to the next round, and you're now dealing with 5 plus 5 plus another 5 EOBs, 15 pieces of paper before you've even started thinking about how to manage all this. And if one of those pieces of paper came from PatientCo, then we can get you to our site where you can understand the complexity and the bigger picture, and therefore feel more comfortable about paying when you're ready the way that you want to pay.
Got it. So where do you guys stand? Are you out of beta? Where do you stand today?
So we actually have, we've reached out to over 1 million patients last year. We have probably 1,000 different providers on to date that go all the way from lots of community hospitals in Georgia all the way up the East Coast to large practices in Boston. We've got hospitals as far out west as Nebraska and Iowa and doctors in Colorado. So we've had a great turnout because doctors want to reach out to patients and help them understand more, not just on the clinical side, but on the understanding of what my healthcare expenses mean to me side. And we've just had a great a lot of people signing up because, the patients are the most important part of the equation.
That's great. Well, shift gears a little bit on that note and talk about the business feeling today in Georgia in respect to entrepreneurs. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen in to the program, and talk about the IT startup community in Georgia these days in respect to how you feel about it, your experience with it.
Well, this always can be an interesting discussion.
Yes.
But I think, and this is a sensitive discussion for a lot of entrepreneurs, but I think Georgia's a great place to be. I mean, if you look at PatientCo, we do a lot of payments, and we're obviously in health IT. So if you started up in Austin or New York or San Francisco, or if you and I were sitting down in Seattle and we said, where's the best place to go that has a combination of health IT clusters and fintech or payment clusters, we look at Atlanta and start the business right here, I guarantee you, because there's a lot of talent here in this state and in the city of Atlanta. And I think TAG, not to really pay a compliment, I think TAG's been helpful. We're part of the health IT cluster as well as the fintech cluster. ATDC's been very strong and helpful. We're a member of the ATDC, so there's lots of ways for entrepreneurs to learn here. And, I think if you get out and you take a great story to people, we have the majority of our customers are here in Georgia, and I think that means a lot to us personally. We've got a great employee base to attract health IT talent, and just from a payment processing perspective, we're in the payment processing capital of the world. So I think that's conducive to having technology, fast-paced technology companies grow here because of that infrastructure and that support.
Well, and you're in two great fields, as you said, health IT and fintech. So you can't beat that area in terms of being Georgia leads in both of those areas. So time for one more question. Just looking out for the future and for your company, and of course with all the things coming down from the Supreme Court and the election now, how does this all going to? This could be a 20-minute conversation or more, obviously. But do you have any quick sound bites on what's going to be happening as you look at your company in respect to health industry?
Well, people do have a lot of different opinions on what happened last week in terms of Obamacare, but I think there's no question that the future for healthcare is definitely changing. And, U.S. healthcare today is far different than it was yesterday or 5 years ago, and it will be even more different in another 5 years. But one constant throughout all that change is patience. And so PatientCo we're always developing new technologies for patients, and we're solving that disconnect when you receive a healthcare bill that you don't understand. That's the problem that we're solving. And we'll continue to do that and develop things that patients want to have in this current environment. For example, the EOB example that we discussed earlier. But if you look at 50 million more people essentially having insurance as a result of Obamacare, then those are 50 million more people that will have bills to pay, and they'll need help in understanding the complexities of healthcare.
Right.
So that's really what we're here for. The patient is the constant in between all that. in this country we don't have free health care, but there's always going to be a need for people to pay for the health care that they owe. And that's what makes Patient Co., I think, an exciting place to be, an exciting place to work, an exciting environment to be in with all this change. Wherever there's change, an entrepreneur loves change because that means there's opportunity.
Right. Well, on that note, Bert, thanks so much for joining me on Tech Talk, and congratulations on the progress of your business. And certainly on behalf of all the folks in Georgia that follow TAG, I'd say thanks for setting this company up in Georgia and Atlanta, and looking to hear great things to come in the future.
Thank you, Tino.